Oh God, that was not a good idea. I should not have done that. It just exploded on me. This beef is the hardest meat in the world. This is gonna make some delicious instant soup because we're making some meat tea. Katsuobushi is the backbone of Japanese cuisine. This ingredient is in so many Japanese dishes, and it's one of the main components of dashi. It is a solid block of umami. You could shave the solid block of katsuobushi into thin pieces and eat that, or you can make it into instant soup. The process to make it is incredibly time consuming. But after you finally make it, you can store it for years and make soup instantly with it. In order to do this, you basically have to petrify fish. This block right here, honkarebushi, took at least 6 months to make. And it's gone through different variations of boiling, smoking, drying, and even fermentation. It's typically made from katsuo, or also known as skipjack. But there are also other variations with different types of fish. What if I made this myself? But instead of fish, I use... And this makes everything way more difficult. Biting into beef is enough to make you emotional. Those sweet juices exploding into your mouth is enough to bring you to tears. But that's kind of the problem. Katsuo is normally super lean, like barely any fat at all, which makes it easy to preserve for a really long time. And in beef, a lot of that juiciness and delicious flavor comes from fat. But when you're trying to preserve something for months and months and months, fat turns rancid, which doesn't taste good and can ruin everything. We do have a couple solutions for that. One of them takes a really long time and involves growing mold. But that's actually the least of our problems. First solution is real simple. I got the leanest meat I could find, which is like eye of round, and I'm gonna trim the fat cap off of these pieces. Then I'm gonna check the initial weight. Katsuobushi is usually about 20% of its initial weight when it's done drying. Then I'm gonna simmer the meat at 180 degrees Fahrenheit or 90 degrees Celsius for an hour so the meat can firm up. While it's simmering, I'm gonna cook some ground beef and also blend it together with some raw ground beef to make a paste to fill out all the cracks. Okay, you're supposed to cover it with this paste, but I really don't know why. So I think it's supposed to give it a more even shape. And I don't even know if this is gonna work because beef fibers are a lot thicker than fish fibers are. I'm gonna spread the paste over the beef and give it a smooth surface. Then everything goes into the smoker. This step can make or break the entire process. Smoking helps preserve meat, but we still have to be really careful in this step because things could still go horribly wrong. The smoke lowers the pH, creating a more acidic surface environment that inhibits bacterial growth. It introduces antimicrobial compounds like formaldehyde, phenols, and acetic acid. The heat from smoking also dries the surface, reducing moisture that microbes need to dry. And in hot smoking, it kills many of the organisms outright. Lastly, smoke slows down fat oxidation, helping prevent acidity and keeping the food tasting better for longer. Smoke is our friend. Until it's not. So if you smoke the meat too hot and for too long, the outside could actually dry out and trap all the moisture inside, which can easily go from preserving meat to preserving your body in a funeral home. Trapped moisture at the center of the meat can create an anaerobic zone, or a zone with no air. On top of that, the meat is not salted and we're keeping it at room temperature for a really long time, a perfect environment for C. botulinum to grow. The same bacteria that makes Botox, which is great if you're trying to get it injected into your face to paralyze your muscles to prevent wrinkles, but if you eat it, it'll also paralyze you. So one way around case hardening is to do nothing at all. And by that, I mean rest the block of meat overnight. This gives time for the water at the center of the meat to migrate back to the surface for a more even distribution of moisture. So the next time you smoke it, you're drying it a little bit deeper. And if you repeat it enough time, you're gonna dehydrate it more evenly rather than having a thick, hard crust on the outside and a wet center. All right, it's been sitting outside overnight and we're gonna have to do everything again. I'm about to smoke it for the third day, and this is smelling really smoky now. And I didn't know that characteristic dashi smell is like from the intense smoke smell, because this is really intense now. And it's starting to harden. It still gives when I press on it, but I could see it on its way to being hard. Like if you tap it together, nothing crazy, still sounds like there's water in it. You can even see the glistening at the bottom. Yeah, we got, 13 more days of this, so. This has been like drying for almost 2 months. After the first 16 days of smoking, and I actually put it into the dehydrator and switched it between 140 degrees Fahrenheit or 60 degrees Celsius back to 95 degrees Fahrenheit. And I switched it back and forward until it became 20% or 25-ish% of its original weight. It kind of smells smoky a little bit beefy, but it looks like a piece of wood. And it sounds like a piece of plastic. It's kind of crazy. So normally if you do Katsuobushi, you could eat this like now. In order to make this actually like honkarebushi, the ones like they make in Japan, I have one more step. And this time it's really sketchy. Actually sketchy, because I have been dreading this moment. There are different power levels of Katsuobushi. After smoking, the fish is called arabushi, which is what we have right now. The next level is after the surface is scraped and all that black smoke char comes off, and that's called harakabushi. And the final form requires... After mold grows on it, it's called honkarebushi, which is about 10 to 15% of its original weight. Aspergillus oryzae is what gives miso and soy sauce that characteristic umami flavor. And we've used it quite a bit in our previous videos. I grew it on meat and stuff like that. But the problem with this mold is that it sucks at growing on dry, crusty bits of meat. So we're gonna have to use a different mold, called Aspergillus glaucus. Aspergillus glaucus is a xerophilic mold, which it means it prefers environments with less water in it. And it does a few things more than Aspergillus oryzae does. It actually breaks down lipids or fats, and it decreases fat oxidation, which decreases rancidity, which essentially preserves the flavor. It also continues to suck water out of the meat so it can be more dehydrated, so you can store it longer, I guess. And it does also improve the flavor, like how koji does to food, with the proteases and amylases and lipases, all that stuff. You could just check out the other videos if you want. And it's cool because I get to use another mold that I haven't used before. I was getting kind of tired of using just koji, except it's something that they don't sell anywhere. After weeks of searching, emailing, and calling, hello, I hope you're doing well. I recently placed an order on Aspergillus glaucus, and I noticed there wasn't a description in the product. I'd love to get more information on it. Hello, Chung. Thank you for your email. Our signature vials do not contain actual substances. They are used for energy medicine practitioners. The vials hold water that has been imprinted with electromagnetic signature, which meant there was nothing in there but water. You know, this is considered done. This is basically arabushi. If I stopped here, it'd still count. But the voices in my head are whispering, what if I can do this? Never, ever, ever do this at home. This is not safe. This is also at the edge of my knowledge. I've never done this before. Well, first I'm adding water and 1% sugar into a mason jar. And I'm gonna place the lid on it and put it inside the pressure cooker with a plastic funnel so that everything gets sterilized. While sterilizing, I'm rinsing out my plastic bottle with 70% alcohol. I'm also wiping down my surface with alcohol spray and letting everything air dry. Next, I'm heat sterilizing my knife by dipping it into alcohol and then heating it until it glows red hot. Meanwhile, I'm pasteurizing the surface of the katsuobushi by running it in the dehydrator again for 140 degrees Fahrenheit for a few hours. Once that's done, I'm using the sterile knife to scrape off the outer surface. Normally you would sand this down with sandpaper, but I only had a knife, so. I found this honkarebushi, the official version that they made in Japan. If you can see here, there's a tiny bit of like white fuzz. There's little white bits of mold right here. And there's also like these little green bits right here. It's like little fuzzies. And that's mold. And we're gonna try to get this to grow on our piece of meat. There's a lot of molds that can mess you up. The air is filled with mold spores just floating around. This means if you don't have a reputable mold source, the mold that you wanna grow is basically trying to fight a free-for-all against all of the mold that exists in the air. It's like digging for treasure in a trash can. Yeah, you might find something useful, but you're also surrounded with, you know, garbage. And in this case, the garbage can potentially kill you. I'm using my sterile knife to scrape off the outer surface of the honkarebushi. And then I'm gonna drop all of those shavings into that sugar water mixture. And I'm making sure to work next to an open flame to reduce airborne contamination. After that, I'm transferring the mixture into a mister to spray it over koji rice. Then I'm gonna incubate it until I see mold. This is probably not the most sterile technique. I'm just trying to minimize other mold and bacteria growth by being as clean as I can. I think I've had this in here for about 2 months now, and it's finally starting to grow mold. This is kind of crazy. Now that I'm looking at this with the light and everything, this is freaking insane. You see a little bit of white mold, a little bit of green mold with some bluish tints to it. In the papers that I read, it said that Aspergillus glaucus had like a green and blue color. And this kind of looks like all the YouTube videos that I found on Katsuobushi. So that's a kind of a good sign. The only thing bad that I see is like, it didn't have like even coverage of mold. And I'm not gonna wait any longer. We're gonna try to eat this. Okay, we're not that stupid. We're actually gonna go somewhere first. I have a friend. So this is my friend Nick.
Hi, this is Mango. So we make a system for bioburden testing. So we test for molds, bacteria, yeast. So today we'll take your mold sample and we're going to subculture it, which means taking small pieces of that and putting it onto a Petri dish in order to purify it.
This is the green one right here. This
Cool.
is probably the main one that I think this is all Aspergillus glaucus.
Okay.
There's a few white ones on the side,
Cool.
corners right there. I think that's Aspergillus oryzae.
And then once it's purified, and we have what's called a pure culture, which means one type of organism growing on that plate, we'll send it out to another lab for PCR testing, which is a test that looks at the DNA and identifies the type of mold.
Do you think I'm gonna be able to like eat this meat after we test it?
We'll give you the results. You can test the meat.
All right, okay. Thanks, Nick.
Yes, thank you for your samples.
I've been wondering why I've been doing this project at all.
Hey Trong, it's Nick. We got your results back from the organism samples that we sent out.
I could have bought it from the start. I didn't need to make it out of beef. I even could have stopped halfway through and called it done.
So we sent out 2 samples for PCR testing. One of them matched as Aspergillus, likely Aspergillus oryzae or Koji.
But somewhere along the way, I wasn't trying to make something anymore.
The second sample unfortunately didn't match anything in the database, which is unusual, but it does happen. So it's kind of annoying. We don't really know what it is.
Giving everything you've got doesn't guarantee anything. It won't always make sense. It might feel pointless, exhausting, stupid.
So based on those results, I would not recommend eating it.
But somewhere in the middle of that, even when things don't turn out, who you are at the start isn't quite who you are when it's over. And maybe that's the point. Let me just try the Katsuo first. It has like this distinct smell. It doesn't taste fishy, but it does have a strong smoke and umami. I didn't know it was smoked this entire time. That was my first time cutting Katsuo ever in my life. This is pretty hard to cut. I should have bought the slicer in Japan, but I did not. They usually have like a wooden box with a little guillotine blade on it that you cut with. So it's like a mandolin, but with a box underneath, so it's more stable. This beef one does not look as good. But you know what? Here goes nothing. Whoa! That's like immediate beef flavor. Huh! I thought that was gonna be pretty bad, but wow. Like you could tell that's beef. And it's not like a beef jerky flavor or anything. It kind of has like the same aromatic smokiness of dashi, but this tastes like a clean broth. It's no fat on it. The katsuo is way clearer. But you know, this makes instant soup really well. And I think if I grinded it into a powder, it's really good at adding beef flavor. I really don't know what I'm gonna do with this. I think I'm gonna keep this, I'm gonna vacuum seal it. Maybe I'll try another PCR test to see what mold is on it. But if anybody knows what to do with this, let me know. And all you need to do is add miso and some noodles, and you have an instant meal. 6 months of work to make a meal in like 3 minutes. Have a good day.